Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Harry because I'm a freelance football journalist for BBC Sport and others. After a little break for the international break, I'm finally picking up the camera again and hitting record and bringing you another YouTube video looking ahead to Newcastle United against Crystal Palace at St James's Park on Saturday. I won't be at the game, but I will be covering it for BBC Sport, so keep an eye out on the website for my analysis and report. Plus, I'll be on the live text tomorrow bringing you all the Premier League news conferences as usual, including Eddie Howe at 10 o'clock. You probably, by the time watching this, already know what he's been saying, but we'll look ahead to the game and the general sort of way that Newcastle are at the moment after the international break. It's been normally quite a quiet time, and that's why I haven't been recording. But in Newcastle's case, obviously with the Sandro Tonali news situation there, that he has admitted a gambling problem, admitted betting on AC Milan games when he was a player there, and Newcastle have confirmed the investigation. It looks like he's going to be banned for a while, possibly up to a year. That's the reports. Possibly a year, possibly even more. The most he can be banned is for 3 years, but I think that because he's the way he's handled himself and helped with the investigation and admitted his situation, he'll probably get a more lenient sentence than that. But not great for Newcastle. Obviously, a big issue that they'll have to sort of deal with. The club are supporting him, as you'll be aware, and the whole situation is just so difficult. Newcastle obviously spent that money on him in the summer. He was their big signing, the player that was going to take them to the new level. And unfortunately, it could be till the end of the season and beyond that he's missing for Newcastle now. So that's something that they're going to have to deal with. He's likely to be available on Saturday, but given that his hearing in Turin was taking up time on the training pitch, and obviously the difficulties of dealing with this and getting sent away from the Italy camp where he was on international duty, not playing against England, all of this sort of thing, it would make it difficult for me to say that he'll play. I'd be surprised if he played, but on the other hand, if he does play, it'll be the last chance for Newcastle fans for a while, you'd imagine, to see him and give him the support. Obviously, there's lots of people rallying around, and rightly so, given this situation. But yeah, just a very sad situation all around. Will Joelinton be fit? Will Sven Botman be fit? Those are questions that Eddie Howe will have to answer tomorrow. And as I say, you might well be aware of those situations by the time you're watching this video. For me, I think Joelinton's more likely than Botman, given that Botman might be, held back for Dortmund in the Champions League on Wednesday night. There's lots of things that Eddie Howe will have to deal with, like Bruno Guimaraes and Miguel Almiron coming back from international duty, those sorts of situations. How will they be shaping up for Saturday? That's only a question that Eddie Howe will know how to answer. But on paper, Newcastle are in a good position. This is a game that Newcastle didn't win last season in September. If you remember, right back to the start of that season, no defeats beyond Liverpool at Anfield for the first half of the season, pretty much. But there were a lot of these dodgy draws, short from a bizarre VAR decision where Tyreek Mitchell pushed Joe Willock into the goalkeeper. Joe Willock is adjudged to have fouled him when there's a goal. Newcastle didn't do enough to win the game, really. Got the score to settle in this game, but the good thing about this season is you look back to the Burnley game, you look back to the Brentford game, and even arguably the Sheffield United game. I think there was a completely different sort of sense to that game, given it was an 8-0 victory and Newcastle sort of came and turned up and steamrolled them. But, these games where it's going to be tight at St James's Park, teams are going to come and make it difficult. Newcastle have managed to break them down and done really well to do that. So I think Newcastle shouldn't have a problem in this game. I watched Crystal Palace on the opening day of the season at Bramall Lane against Sheffield United, and short of Ebere Eze, I don't really think that Crystal Palace have too much to threaten Newcastle. They struggle to score goals. They're good defensively, obviously, with Joachim Andersen, who's a target for Newcastle and has been previously of interest to them. But I think, generally speaking, Newcastle shouldn't have too many issues with this game, really, if they turn up and play their game and start with intensity. It's just whether the hangover from the 2 weeks and the hangover from the Tonali situation has an impact on Newcastle. But a lot of the time, they tend not to sort of let these things affect them, and I think they'll turn up and perform, and I think they'll get the result. Joelinton, will he be back? Obviously, the midfield issue will become more prominent now. Tonali's more likely not to be playing for a year. When's Joe Willock back? Only Eddie Howe knows. I think he's close, and so's Joelinton, but it's whether they're going to be back in the next couple of weeks with such a heavy fixture load coming up, obviously, with Crystal Palace, Dortmund, Wolves, Manchester United, and then Arsenal. and then Dortmund again. It's non-stop for the next batch of games, just as it has been the last few games. And those fixtures look quite tough on paper. Then Chelsea to come in November as well. They're going to get tougher. So there's going to be a lot more questions asked of Newcastle in the next few weeks. And people like Joe Willock and Joelinton are going to have to step up pretty quickly when they return. I think Joe Willock obviously being out for 6 months. It'll take him a while to sort of get back up to speed. Obviously, everybody knows about the Eddie Howe system and the Eddie Howe style and how intense it is and how much it takes out of you. Obviously, Joe Willock is a key component of that when he's fit. So he'll be used to that. He'll know what he's in for, but it'll take him a little bit of time to step up to that level, I think. Then you've got Alexander Isak. Obviously, he missed those Sweden games as well. So will he be fit? I think the chances are he won't play on Saturday, and Callum Wilson, who missed out on the England squad, probably will. And then it's a question of whether Isak will play against Dortmund, his former club, next week. I think Newcastle, though, go into this game in good shape. It just, as I say, depends all on what the situation is with Sandro Tonali. You can't get very much quiet time at Newcastle these days, if ever you could, but particularly these days when it's so exciting on the pitch and so dramatic now apparently off it as well. As I say, I think Newcastle will win this game. I think they'll be in a good position to then head into the Dortmund game looking for another 3 points after the PSG game. I was on the True Faith podcast this week discussing the Champions League group, so go and listen to that if you're on Patreon if you can. Really enjoyable with the lads. So really enjoyed that. But I think we'll talk about more of the Champions League when back next week. I won't be at the press conference, but I will be hopefully at the match, bringing you some thoughts from St James's Park. I'll be back on Sunday to look back at the Crystal Palace game. But as I say, do keep an eye on the website on BBC Sport for the match report and analysis and quotes from Eddie Howe after that game. And hopefully, what is a big win, Newcastle closing in on that top four. It's a real cluster of teams chasing that Champions League spot. It's really shaping up now. Newcastle are in there, currently 8th in the league, but a victory in this game will go a really long way to making a huge difference to where Newcastle stand going into what is, as I say, a really difficult run of fixtures. I probably will be, hopefully, at Old Trafford as well, in what's a really busy month for me, then going to Dortmund and Paris as well. So it's a really exciting, busy month coming up for Newcastle, but it's going to be really difficult as well. Thank you very much for joining me. Again, please like, share and subscribe. And there won't be another 2-week break for a long time, I think, because it's going to be video after video after video over the next few weeks. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'll catch you then. Cheers.